Hey, this is Jono. Now, a couple of months ago, a company reached out to me and they were really struggling with community engagement and growth. And I asked them the same question I'm going to ask you right now, and that is, do you know exactly who your audience is? Now, their response was, yeah, not really. And you might have the same response, but here's the kicker, is that if you are not clear on who your audience is, then you're going to really struggle to be successful. Now, why do you need to care about who your audience is? Well, there's two reasons. Firstly, if you're not clear on who your audience is, then you're going to create a really boring community. How many times have you gone into a Discord channel or a forum or something like that, and it's just a bunch of Q&A from people who you don't know? Why would you ever go back to a community like that, right? But if you know exactly who your audience is and you can deliver a ton of value to them, then there's a reason to come back, because that audience is going to come back and feel supported, and they're going to be learning and growing and solving problems. But the second reason why you need to dial your audience in is because it really impacts all the work that you do in the future, whether you're creating content, blog posts, social media, doing events, running hackathons. If you're not dialed into your audience, then all of that stuff isn't really going to hit the mark. All right, so let's get started with step one, and I want you to brainstorm all of your potential audiences. Now, let's say for the sake of argument, you've got a developer tool that people can use to build web applications that run in a browser, okay? Now, I want you to get a bunch of Post-it notes, and on each Post-it note, write the different types of audiences that could use your tool and that could be potentially members of your audience, right? So it could be startups that are building applications, it could be enterprises like bigger companies, or it could be industry-specific stuff like companies who are building medical records platforms that are running inside of a browser. Get all of that stuff written down, put them onto Post-it notes, and then put them on your desk. Now, once you've got all of those different ideas brainstormed, we're now going to move on to step number two, and this is where you're going to focus on narrowing it down to one audience. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Jono, I've written down like 15 different audiences. How am I going to pick one of these? Well, you're going to evaluate all of those different Post-its through two primary filters. Now, the first filter is going to be volume, is how many people are in each of those different audiences, right? So for example, if you're evaluating earlier stage companies who are building web applications that run in a browser, there's a lot of companies out there, there's a lot of developers out there who fall into that bucket. If you compare that to something very specifically and very niche, such as early stage companies who are building medical records platforms that run inside of a browser, there's going to be far fewer of those people. Now, it's not always a numbers game. In some cases, you are building a community around a very specific niche audience, and there will be a ceiling for the number of people that could join that community. There may only ever be 500 or 1,000 people in the world who could join your community. But that's really good for us to know, because that can help us in how we demonstrate the success of our community. If you've got a community that can only max have 1,000 people in it, I would not want to, for example, show growth as one metric of success. Like, because at some point you're gonna hit the ceiling and then you're done. Whereas if you've got a community where you could have millions and millions of people in your community, then growth is absolutely something that you should be tracking every single week. But the second filter that we want to evaluate all of these different brainstormed audiences through is much more nuanced and much more unique to you, and that is, how can you help them, right? So fundamentally, the way in which you build an amazing community, if we boil it all down, is that we provide multiple different touch points to help our audience solve their problems, achieve their goals, and feel completely supported throughout the entire process. So if you look at all those different audiences, and let's say you've got one audience which is people in financial services who are building, web applications, right? That's one potential audience. And you don't really have a lot of financial services expertise or experience inside of your company, then you're not going to be able to support them very well. Whereas if you, for example, are focusing on a broader audience of just earlier stage startups who are focusing on building web applications, and you know what it's like to work with those startups, you know what it's like, to raise money and to build a team and to have to be scrappy, if you've got that kind of experience, then you can support them effectively. And when you evaluate that, with that first additional kind of filter of how many people sit into those different audiences, your target audience is going to very naturally start manifesting itself. So pick one. Don't pick two, don't pick three, pick one. Now, why are we targeting just one? Why can't we pick two? Why can't we pick three? Because it's much better for us to pick one audience, go deep on that audience, really provide some amazing help, get a sense of what we're putting out there that's resonating, that's working, do a good job there, and then start expanding out into some of these other audiences. Now, as you're evaluating these different audiences, you're going to need a great community platform, and that leads us, rather conveniently, to today's video sponsor, and that is Skool. Now, Skool is an awesome community platform that's got a whole raft of different features baked into it, from discussion forums to direct messaging to great analytics and metrics to creating online course and learning materials. And it's great if you want to set up a community of fans, a community around your product, your service, or masterminds. You should totally check out School, and you can find out more by clicking the link in the video description. So now with your audience selected, we're going to move on to step number 3, and this is where you're going to brainstorm your audience's pain points. Now, to illustrate this, I'm going to use a kind of cheesy example, but imagine you're a dentist and you stood there and there's 2 people in front of you. You've got this guy who wants to get his teeth whitened, and you've got this lady with horrendous toothache. Now, which of those 2 different people is going to demand you as a dentist more urgently? I think we'd agree it's going to be the lady with a toothache because she's in pain and she wants that pain to go away, right? Unless that guy really, really wants his teeth whitening, okay? But we want to take the same approach to your community. Instead of, like a lot of companies and communities do, thinking of all these amazing kind of unicorns and rainbows ideas of what you can do for your community, that's fine, but people resonate much more to solving problems, right? So what I want you to do now is I want you to brainstorm all of the different pain points that your chosen audience is going to have. So the kind of things where when they wake up in the morning, the things that they really don't want to do during the day, that are mundane and repetitive and uninteresting and cause fear and anxiety and frustration, those are the things we want to think of. Now, there are 2 different zoom levels for pain points. You've got narrow pain points and broad pain points. So if we're going back to our example of a front-end software developer, narrow pain points are going to be things such as cross-browser issues, performance bottlenecks and issues, debugging pretty gnarly conditions, handling legacy code, accessibility compliance, integration with other systems, managing APIs and security issues. These kinds of things are very specific to people who build web applications. But let's zoom out a little bit, and when we think of that person as a human being who does that kind of work, what are the broader things that they struggle with? And that's where we're going to get into things such as prioritization of their workload, dealing with limited resources and time, managing scope creep, managing blockers such as working with design teams, cross-team conflicts such as working with product teams, fear of tech layoffs or dealing with difficult bosses and stakeholders or handling malicious users and actors. When you get all of that stuff down and write all of these different ideas on post-it notes as well, what we can do is we can turn that post-it note over and we can write a solution to one of those problems. So this leads us, rather unsurprisingly, to step number 4, which is start delivering some of those quick wins. Now, here's the thing. Scientifically, the most productive, the most impactful human beings in the world, what they do is they learn a new technique or a new skill or they have a new idea and they just commit to action right away. Now, if you've gone through these steps already and you've got all of these different pain points written down, you might think to yourself, yeah, I'll kind of get to, solving one of those pain points and providing a quick win in a couple of weeks, right? Don't do that. Get on it right now, because otherwise all the work that you've done right now is going to be wasted, right? So what I want you to do is pick one of those pain points, flip that post-it note over, and just write down something that you could deliver to solve that problem. So let's say, for the sake of argument, we're dealing with this front-end web development audience, right? And one of the things that they're struggling with is a particular type of cross-browser issue. Their application looks different in Edge than it does in Chrome than it does in Firefox, right? What you could do is you could create a simple video that walks through how to fix that. You could create a blog post that shows how to fix that. You might even be able to create a tweet that shows how to fix that. But the point is that we show a really simple, easy to consume solution to that one specific problem. Don't try to turn it into a massive piece, a massive series. It doesn't need to be that complicated. Just focus on solving that one problem and do that for a number of these different pain points and drop those solutions into your community. Because what it's going to do is it's going to build reciprocity. The more you solve their problems, the more they're going to associate your community as being really valuable and really useful, and the more they're going to come back. Now, if you want to build an amazing community around your product or service, you want to build consistent growth and engagement, you should totally check out my Community Leadership Core Accelerator. So we provide hands-on coaching, training, and accountability. It's all tailored directly to your company, and it helps you to deliver really clear, consistent results every single quarter with way less stress and anxiety. If you're interested in this, check out the link in the video description down there, where you can book a call with us and we'll listen to what you want to achieve, what some of the challenges you're having, and we'll provide you some really concrete next steps inside of that call. And with that in mind, thank you for watching. Make sure that you like and subscribe, and peace out.